Perfect. Perfect.
All right, everybody, what's going on? How y'all doing? Welcome to today's edition of SWAC Talk. This is the show we cover the SWAC inside and out. I'm your tour guide around the SWAC Seawells, and it is time for the Celebration Bowl. Celebration Bowl is coming up on Saturday, so we're gonna go ahead and talk about that game, man. You know, there's a lot of other stuff going on when you look at the coaches searches and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to take the luster away from this game. This is a big game. Two teams who won their conferences. Both of them pretty much earned their spots here. So this should be a great game. And we're going to talk about that game in a minute. Before we do that, we're going to go over our HBCU top 10 after the conference championship game and everything. So we'll talk about all of that. And before we do that, man, y'all make sure y'all hit those socials. We're going to be putting up our season recaps. Will continue. I'm gonna drop on my socials the day before the video drops, so you'll know what team is coming the next day. So y'all make sure y'all hit the socials to get that info. Of course, Facebook is Swag Talk, Instagram Swag Talk, Twitter Swag Talk 76. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button to subscribe to the channel. Like the video, share. Feel free to comment your thoughts on this game or any other stuff that's going on in the HBCU realm right now. Because this is it as far as football goes. I mean, of course, we have the transfer portal going on, signing day. The early signing period starts December 20th. Legacy Bowl, all the other all-star games are coming up next year. And of course, we're gonna talk basketball, in the meantime, in between time. So got a full slate of shows gonna be coming at you. Gonna constantly have some stuff coming at you. Got some interviews I'm working on that I'm gonna try to drop in the near future. So just keep it locked with us, and then we're going to continue to do what we do. If you like to support the show, you hit the join button to become a member, or you can hit the super thanks to support the show in that way, or you can hit the Cash App $Swag Talk. Anything would be appreciated. So let's go ahead and jump into the HBCU top 10. This top 10 is pretty much based off of the results of the SWAC championship game. There won't be a lot of movement in it, but I'm a person who likes to complete all my tasks, so that's the main reason why this is here. So there won't be a lot of movement in it. It's gonna probably be kind of similar to the week before's, but I want to continue this to the end of the season, and so we'll continue with this one before our final top 10 next week. So checking in at the number one spot, of course, is the FAMU Rattlers. They remain number one. They beat Prairie View in the SWAC championship game 35-14. They've been the number one team since week 12. They've been in the top two all season. They took over the number one spot in week 12, and they've held it since. They did what they needed to do against Prairie View. They took care of business. They had a solid running game from Terrell Jennings. The passing attack wasn't spectacular, but they were able to hit some big plays. Marcus Riley had a great game. Defensively, 3 interceptions. They made life tough for the Prairie View offense. Prairie View did score 2 touchdowns, one in the second quarter, one in the third quarter. But they never could really get anything going. They only threw the ball for 91 yards. So FAMU took care of business in a rainy game. They were able to stay focused and take care of business. So they remain number one heading into the Celebration Bowl, and they would take on the number 2 team in the poll, and that's Howard. Howard's 6-5, and we'll talk about this team in a few minutes when we get ready to go over the Celebration Bowl itself. And you're seeing 6-5, number 2. You're like, what the hell? This team is a really, really good team. They had a rough non-conference slate. They dropped a few games in the non-conference, but they were able to um, take care of business in conference play, and they beat defending champ North Carolina Central by 30 points. So I couldn't really have Central over them, especially with them beating them. But their record is not necessarily indicative of this team. So, and we'll talk about that in a couple minutes. But they are the number 2 team. They've been number 2 since week since week 13. So they're holding steady there, um, and they're looking solid. So number 3 is North Carolina Central. They're 9-3. Their last game was a loss to Richmond in the FCS playoffs. This was a team who some people thought could make a run in the playoffs. Didn't happen, but they were still a very, very good team. I mean, they finished basically tied for the lead in the MEAC, but their loss to Howard, took them out of the race for the Celebration Bowl. But they went to the playoffs, had opportunity, played well until Davius Richard got banged up in that game, and the offense kind of lost its mojo. And Richmond was able to start capitalizing on the defense. So they remain at the number 3 spot. Number 4 is Alcorn. They moved up from number 5. They're 7-4. They closed out their season beating Jackson State a couple weeks ago. Finished tied with Prairie View for the SWAC West, but Prairie View beat them by 3 points at the beginning of the season, at the beginning of conference play, and that put the Panthers in the championship game. Alcorn had a solid season. They late loss, inexplicably bad loss to Texas Southern, really hampered this team and kept them out of the SWAC championship game. So if you want to look at where they faltered, that's exactly where they faltered. Number 5 is Bama State. They finished 7-4 as well. They were number 6, moved up to 5. They closed out beating Tuskegee. A late loss to Prairie View by a touchdown cost them an 8-3 season, and a 6-2 conference record. So they had an opportunity to finish in the mix in the conference, but came up just short. Jackson State finished 7-4 as well. They moved up from 7 to number 6. I always say, depending on who you ask, some people, a good season. Some people said, this team was gonna have was gonna do, better than they did, and this is a bad season. But 7-4 for all new team basically was very solid, and this team took care of the football for the most part. Defensively, they were solid. Special teams had some injuries, caused some ups and downs, but they were able to kind of right the ship after a rocky start. A couple, a tough loss to Bama State mixed in there, but they closed out the season strong before they lost to Alcorn. Number 7 is Prairie View. They dropped from 4 to 7 off of that loss to FAMU. They finished the season at 6-6. Second SWAC championship game in 3 years. Still, just cannot get over that hump. It was kind of like a survival of the fittest in the West, and they were the last team standing. They weren't a great team, but they were a team who did what they needed to do to get where they went. It ultimately became a chance at redemption against FAMU, but they just could not get out of their way, and FAMU was able to win this game 35-14. So Panthers were picked 5th place by a lot of people, 4th place, 3rd place, somewhere in that mix, and they were able to win a division. So that's a fella in their cap. That's something that you can carry with you. But coming up short is never a good thing in the SWAC championship game. You do it enough, you start to wear that. So if any team wants to get out there and make this right this ship, it's PV. We'll see. They're losing some key guys. So we'll see how they do in the offseason, and when they get ready for preseason predictions, we'll see where the Panthers fare. Southern is number 8. They finished at 6-5. Up and down team. Offensively never really got going. Defense was solid. Had a couple rough games toward the end, but they were still a super bend but don't break defense, and that kept Southern in a lot of games. 6-5 season was kind of a disappointment to some people. But they that's where they finished. Tennessee State also finished 6-5. They moved up from the number 10 spot. They were number 9. Um, this is a team who was in the mix for a playoff spot. Lost 3 straight at the end of the season. Some really rough losses, and just finished, with a thud. We're sitting in a good position for stretches of the season. Before they started losing, at one point they were the number 3 team in my poll in week 10. In week 10, they were 6-2, and they dropped their last 3 games and basically found themselves sitting at the number 9 spot. And Grambling is 5-6. They're number 10. Um, they're probably the best out of the 5-6 teams. Although they did lose to A&M, so you could put A&M in that spot. They beat Hampton, but Hampton was a solid team. They won a couple of CAA games, so either one of those teams could be number 10. Grambling, I thought they played well for portions of the season, kind of tailed off toward the end, but they finished number 10. Honorable mention: Alabama A&M 5-6, South Carolina State 5-6, Morgan State 4-6, Hampton 5-6. So that's pretty much our top 10. So let's jump directly into the Celebration Bowl preview. This game is on ABC. It's a 12 o'clock. Oh, well, it's 11 o'clock kickoff. 11 o'clock Central Time. FAMU, Rattlers, number 5 in the country. So they're coming in hot. Howard's coming in, with a solid record. They're 6-5, but they finished the MEAC season at 4-1. This team is on a 2-game winning streak. They're undefeated at home. They're 2-4 on the road and 0-for-1 in neutral sites. So they kind of struggle away from home. If you look at all of their losses were away from home. So if there's one thing that Howard's going to have to do is find a way to break that. They're going to have to find a way to break that and win a game away from home. They opened up their season against Eastern Michigan. They lost that game 33-23. They fell behind big, but they were able to battle back and ultimately lose this game by 10 points. Their next game was against Morehouse. They won that game 65-19. They lost to Hampton 35-34 in a game that they probably should have won, but Hampton was playing pretty solid football at that point. That's a game that they really should have won. That would make their record look a bit better. The next game they played was Robert Morris. They beat them 35-10. They went to Evanston and lost to Northwestern 23-20. So again, that's 2 losses that they have that came by 3 points or less. Either one of those losses flip around. Both of them flip around. This is an 8-3 team with an FBS win. So they were not. The non-conference slate had losses, but they had some close games. Their worst outing of the season was against Harvard on October 14th. They lost the game 48-7. They were just never in that game. Harvard had their way with them, and that was their worst loss of the season, and pretty much the worst game they played all year. They opened up MEAC play, beating Norfolk State 27-23. They beat Delaware State 17-10. They lost at South Carolina State 27-24. Then the next week they would rebound and beat North Carolina Central 50-20. And then they would close out the MEAC season beating Morgan State 14-7. So like I said, this is a team that, that was a very solid team. They had a lot of opportunities, but came up short in the non-conference, took care of business in conference play. The Bison, they finished with 14 guys receiving all conference honors. 7 guys made first team in the MEAC, led by All-American candidates, offensive lineman Anim Dankwa, and defensive back Kenny Gallup Jr. Both of those guys are All-American type of players, and they were first team all conference. Also first team honoree was Demetrius Weatherspoon. He anchored the league's top offense, averaging nearly 384 yards per game. Wideout Casey Hawthorne made all MEAC first team, leading the conference with 35 receptions in 10 games. Defensively, Gallup and the secondary topped the country in pass defense, allowing only 129 yards per game in the air. uh, Darian Brokenburr, Terrence Holton, and Aaron Bickerton. They also earned spots on the first team. Quentin Williams, quarterback, return specialist. Ian Wheeler highlighted the second team. Eden James, a running back, and Jared Hunter, also running back. Offensive lineman Darius Fox, defensive lineman Jamil Stewart, and defensive back Carson Hinton joined Williams and Wheeler on the second team. Bickerton also made the all-conference second team as a kicker, going 8 for 8 in field goal attempts. So let's look at how the Bison, how they look statistically coming into this game. As you saw earlier, this was a team who did not give up a lot on defense, especially through the air. They finished the season averaging 180 yards on the ground. They did give up um, 186 yards on the ground rushing as a defense. So they were very solid against the pass, but not as great against the run. They really had a tough time stopping teams on the ground. So if you want to attack this team, you're gonna have to do it on the ground, which to me kind of doesn't play in the FAMU strength. Now they can run the ball and they have backs that can run it, but they kind of are a team who more is built to throw the ball. Passing, Howard throws the ball for 202 yards per game. They have 17 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Defensively, like I said, they allow 129 yards per game. Uh, 10 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. Bison averaged 383 yards per game on offense. They allow 316 per offense per game for the opponents. They average. They have 3 lost fumbles on the season, so they have 8 turnovers. The opponents have 2 fumbles lost on the season, giving them 9 turnovers. So they are +1 in the turnover margin. They have 60 penalties for 516 yards. Opponents 67 for 597. They average 39.5 yards per punt. Third down conversion rate, they are 71 of 151. The opponents 51 of 133. 14 of 27 on fourth down. The opponents 9 of 14. They have made 94% of their extra points and 50% on 2-point conversions. When you look at their key players, Jared Hunter leads the offense with 602 yards rushing. He has 8 touchdowns on the season, averages 4.5 yards per carry. Eden James, 572 yards on the season, 5.8 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. So you have 2 backs right there that have almost over 500 yards apiece. You also can throw in Ian Wheeler. He has 378 yards on the season and 2 touchdowns. He averages 7.4 yards per carry. Also, Hawthorne has 179 yards and 4 touchdowns, averages 8.5 yards per carry. And then Williams is at 110 yards on the season with 5 touchdowns. So they have multiple guys that can hurt you on the ground. And even though their passing numbers are a bit better, they are a team that wants to run the football. They ran the ball 406 times compared to 316 pass attempts. So they want to run the football, and they are good at running the football. That matchup against FAMU's rushing defense is a great matchup. Hunter and James are great backs. Williams can hurt you with his legs from time to time. You also have guys in Wheeler and Hawthorne who can kind of do some gadget things and hurt you as well. So that matchup there is going to be really interesting. I think for Howard, they're going to have to try to move the ball through the air against that FAMU secondary, which is a very good secondary. I think FAMU's defense is more than capable in this game, but Williams is 178 of 298 passing. He has 16 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Numbers are a lot better from last season. 2,158 yards, 59% completion rate, has a long of 69 on the season. Casey Hawthorne, like I said, he leads the MEAC in receiving with 35 catches. He has 504 yards and 3 touchdowns on the season. Richie Ilaraza, he has 300 yards on 30 catches, averaging 10 yards per catch. Jared Hunter, 22 catches, 247 yards and 2 touchdowns. Braylon Smith, 21 catches, 226 yards and 2 touchdowns. Nishan, his Zika, 17 catches, 207 yards, one touchdown. Eden James, 13 for 169 and a touchdown. Jamar Ebron, 11 for 132. Gavin Harris, 10 for 153 and two touchdowns. Ian Wheeler, 9 for 119. So they, as you can see, they spread the ball around. They have 8 guys with double-digit catches, and 9 guys with over 100 yards receiving. So they don't necessarily have one guy that they go to. They spread the ball around, and everybody's equally capable of making plays. Everybody averages double-digit yards per catch, so they're all very, very capable guys. When it comes to field goals, Aaron Bickerton is 8 of 8 on field goals on a season with a long of 39. They have not attempted a field goal longer than 39 yards on the season. So they're 3 for 3 from 20 to 29 yards and 5 for 5 from 30 to 39 yards. Um, they don't kick long field goals. So if they're outside of 39-yard range, they're more often than not gonna either go for it or punt. So if you FAMU, then once you have them in that range, you're probably not gonna have to worry about points on the board. Bickerton is also the punter. He averages 40.9 yards per punt, with 16 punts fair caught, 13 punts inside the 20, and 10 50-plus yard punts. He does have one block. His long on the season is 60. When it comes to returns, Ebron averages 5.7 yards per return. Smith has 23 yards per return on 3 punt returns. He has a long of 58 on the season, which is the long for the team. Wheeler leads the team in kickoff returns. He has 370 yards on 14 returns, averages 26.4 yards per return with 1 touchdown, long of 88. Smith is at 4 for 80 with an average of 20 yards per return. Defensively, Terrence Holon leads the defense with 63 tackles. Brokenberg leads the defense with 7.5 tackles for loss. He also leads the defense with 4.5 sacks, interceptions. Gallup has 2 on the season. Also, Williams has 2 on the season. Gallup has 3 pass breakups. Christian White has 4. Perrin also has 4 pass breakups. Jackson has 6 quarterback hurries, and Stewart has 5. So, like I said, when you look at this team, they're a solid team. As you could tell, a team that likes to run the ball is going to definitely be a physical team. Defensively, they're really strong against the pass, but yardage is there on the ground for you. So if you're FAMU, you don't want to go away from what you do, but you definitely want to make sure that you get the run game going, because the opportunity to run the ball is there. But you still need to play into your strengths, which is your passing game. It's imperative for FAMU to have the good Jeremy Musa in this game. That he cannot be off in this game. I think that if he's off in this game, they're really going to have a tough time. The point spread is 9, so the Rattlers are favored in this game by 9 points. That's a pretty solid spread. I would probably say 7, but 9 is not bad. Howard's going to be a tough matchup. This probably will be the best team that FAMU plays. Record-wise, may not look that way, but this will probably be the best FCS team that the Rattlers have played this season. So it's going to definitely be a battle. Looking at FAMU coming into this game, they led the East from start to finish. Did not drop a game. Did have some rocky moments there. Had a couple games that may have been a little bit closer than some people would want, but they were able to take care of business. They had the player of the year on offense, the player of the year on defense. Coach Simmons was the coach of the year. They also had the specialist of the year in Gillis. So this team is definitely a team that has it. That basically has everything. They had 13 all SWAC selections. So just like Howard, they basically dominated the all conference team. And those guys came on both sides of the ball. When you look at Offensively, Jeremy Musa was first team quarterback. Like I said, he was the player of the year. Cameron Coven was first team on the offensive line. Isaiah Major, first team defense. He was defensive player of the year. Kendall Bowler, a defensive back. Eric Smith, a defensive back. Anthony Dunn was an off defensive lineman. Cameron Gillis was the all SWAC kicker on first team. Second team, you had Marcus Riley at wide receiver, Jamare Shareed at wide receiver, Ashton Grable on offensive line, Gentle Hunt on the defensive line, Johnny Chaney, a linebacker, Lovey Jenkins at defensive back. This is they basically had guys all over both teams, and they definitely were a tough team to play. The defense was stout and didn't give up much. The offense could be up and down at times, but they always found a way at the end to get the job done. The Rattlers finished 11-0, 11-1 overall, 8-0 in conference. They're on a 10-game winning streak. They're 4-0 at home, 4-1 on the road, and 3-0 at neutral sites. They opened up their season beating Jackson State 28-10. They jumped up to a 28-0 lead in that game, and basically offense kind of didn't get a lot going after that, but they were able to win that game. They lost to South Florida 38-24. They trailed in that game 31-24 at a late portion in the fourth quarter before the Bulls got a touchdown to pull away. Against West Florida, they won 31-10. That was a 3-3 game at the half, but the Rattlers were able to wear down the Argonauts and get the dub there. Bama State was a 23-10 victory. Isaiah Major basically sealed that game with a pick six, giving them a 23-10 win. They went to Valley, and that was kind of a rocky game at the beginning. Valley kind of hung in there, kind of was really pesky and wouldn't go away, but the Rattlers did what they do, score in the second half, won that game 31-7. Southern was probably their closest game in conference play. They trailed that game 19-16 in the fourth quarter, scoring 10 points late to get the victory there, and held Southern on two fourth quarter possessions without any yards to seal that game. They went to Houston to play Texas Southern, won that game 31-21. TSU led this game 14-0 at one point before the Rattlers started to put it together. Late touchdown made the score, a 10-point margin for the Rattlers. They beat Prairie View 45-7. This was a 14-7 game at one point, but FAMU pulled away and didn't really have many problems in this game. They beat Alabama A&M 42-28. Game was pretty close early. Bulldogs definitely made it tough early, had a lead, but the Rattlers were able to kind of, again, pull away and play solid in the second half and get the victory. Lincoln, 28-0. This was a game I think they just tried to get in there and get out without anything happening, knowing that you had the Florida Classic the next week and the SWAC championship game in a couple weeks after that. So they took their business against Lincoln. They didn't start Musa in that game. Set him and let him heal up and get ready for the final portion of the season. Won it 28-0. Florida Classic, they beat Bethune-Cookman 24-7. And just like a game like this, you always expect the underdog to kind of, put up a good fight. Bethune-Cookman put up a fight. FAMU did what they do and controlled that game and got the victory. And then they beat Prairie View 35-14. They led this game 21-0 before Prairie View scored right before the half. Prairie View would come out and cut the lead to 21-14 before FAMU would score the final two touchdowns and get the win. And that's what puts the Rattlers in the Celebration Bowl for the first time against the Howard Bison, who are in the Celebration Bowl for the first time. FAMU wins their first ever SWAC championship in their third year, so that's definitely a feather in their cap. And let's see how the Rattlers got here, statistically. Like I said, they were the best team in the league. They averaged 30 points per game. They gave up 14. They averaged 143 yards on the ground, averaged 4.6 yards per carry. They only allowed 96 yards per game rushing and 2.9 yards per carry. So that's why I said that FAMU rushing defense against the Howard rushing offense is a matchup that's going to really be intense. The Rattlers threw the ball for 232 yards, 19 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. opponents 170 yards through the air, 14 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. Their defense forces a ton of turnovers. Howard's going to have to be careful with that. The secondary makes a lot of plays. The defense can get pressure, and they're going to make it tough. Total offense, 376 yards for the Rattlers per game, 6.1 yards per play. 267 yards for the opponents, 4.2 yards per play. FAMU averages 42 yards per punt. They give up 40 yards per punt average. They convert 40% on third down, 57% on fourth down. Opponents 27% on third down and 50% on fourth down. They have 6 turnovers on the seat, 6 fumbles with 9 interceptions, giving them 15 turnovers. The defense has 14 interceptions and 6 fumbles, giving them 20 turnovers. So they're +5 in the turnover margin. They definitely do a great job of forcing turnovers. They have 36 sacks on the season, only allow 14. Their O-line is really, really good. They do a great job of protecting the quarterback and opening up holes for their backs. They have some big backs that can run and they can grind all yards too. Terrell Jennings, 605 yards, 6 yards per carry, 9 touchdowns. Kelvin Dean, 366 yards, 5.2 yards per carry with 3 touchdowns. Jaquez Yant, 333 yards, 3.9 yards per carry, and 7 touchdowns. Also, Will Holt, he has 206 yards on the ground, averaging 6.1 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. Jeremy Musa, 195 or 339, 2,604 yards on the season, 19 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. He is completing 57% of his passes. Does have some spurts of inaccuracy, but when he goes to the air, he has a bevy of weapons. Marcus Riley, 32 catches, 570 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jamari Shareed, 46 catches, 441 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kamari Young at tight end, 24 catches, 366 yards, and a touchdown. Nicholas Dixon, 18 for 314 and 2 touchdowns. Also, Jamari Gassett, 23 catches, 311 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He had some big catches for the Rattlers this season. Jeremiah Pruitt, 12 catches, 191 yards, and a touchdown. David Manigo, 12 for 162. And Kareem Burke has 113 yards on 6 catches. Kobe Gross has 9 catches for 85 yards. So when you look at this team, they're just like Howard. They spread the ball around. They have 7 guys with double-digit catches, 8 guys with over 100 yards receiving. Riley is that big play guy. Shareed can hurt you with his speed, but Riley is the guy that he can get behind you. And Musa connects, that's typically going to be a touchdown. So if you're Howard, you're definitely going to want to work to keep these guys from hitting that big pass play on you, because they're going to get it if they continue to play the way they play. Isaiah Major leads the defense with 100 tackles. Johnny Chaney has 62. When it comes to tackle for loss, Anthony Dunn had a great season this year. He has 12.5 tackles for loss. Major 11.5. Gentle Hunt at 11. They just have guys all over who can be disruptive. Dunn leads the defense with 8 sacks. Hunt at 5.5 interceptions. Morgan and Smith each have 3. They're both guys who can really be ball hawks and make things happen. This defense has 98 tackles for loss on the season to go with those 36 sacks. So they do a great job of getting all kinds of pressure on quarterbacks and making offenses uncomfortable. Special teams wise, they're solid in the kick game. Trey Wilhoit has a 44-yard average with a longer 62. He has 12 punts inside the 20 and 14 50-plus yard punts. Cameron Gillis, first team all-conference kicker and special teams player of the year. 10 of 13 for 76%. He's 5 of 5 from 20 to 29 yards, 3 of 5 from 30 to 39 yards, 2 or 3 from 40 to 49 yards. Has a longer 44. Does have 2 kicks blocked, so that's something to keep in mind. But he does have range, so that definitely is an added weapon in the kick game. And when it comes to returns, this team is very solid. Shareed is the top punt returner. He averages 13.8 yards per return with a longer 50. 16 returns, 221 yards. Riley is the leader in kickoff return man. He has 9 returns for 261 yards, averages 29 yards per return and a 96-yard touchdown. this game is going to be great, man. I think this should be a very entertaining game. I think it's going to be a physical game. Both defenses are going to really kind of test the other team's offense. Um, what each offense strength is, that's really the strength of their defense that they're facing. Although I think FAMU being able to be solid against the pass and get pressure on the quarterback, along with their great run defense, kind of gives them an edge. FAMU, Howard, like I said, they're great in pass defense. Run defense, not so good, but they can make life rough for an opponent. Um, I think I hate to boil a game down like this to one guy, but if you do, you always look at your quarterback. And Musa has had some bouts of inaccuracy. It hasn't really hurt the Rattlers, but this is a game that can hurt them. I do think being able to run the ball with Jennings, Yant, and Dean, I think that helps a lot. And also they can scheme up things for Shareed and Riley. So I think FAMU has enough weapons to win this game, and I think they will win this game. I think they'll win this game by a score of, I'm gonna say 27-20. I think this is gonna be a fourth quarter game. I think it's gonna be a back and forth affair. This will probably be the biggest test that FAMU has had all season, and I expect for the Bison to really make it tough for them. But I think the Rattlers will pull this one out and get the second Celebration Bowl victory for the SWAC. So with that being said, man, I'm your tour guide around the SWAC. C. Well signing out, and I'm gonna catch y'all on the rebound. Peace.